What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in. You're here on RotoGrinders. It's Thursday night showdown. I'm Justin Carlucci here alongside a toe tagging Tambo. What's up, Mr. Tamboline? How's it going?
I'm good, man. Busy times. We're getting to it. This is a good game here. Carolina, Atlanta, second of a division game though, so we're going to see how that looks. But a lot to talk about here, and a lot of different ways you can go about playing this slate. There's some weather conversations out there. There's some backup running back situations based on the CMC not coming back. So there's a lot to go on here. Are we back on Mike Davis? What are we doing with this game? So excited to talk about it, man.
Yeah, check out Tambo on Twitter at Toe Tagging Tambo. Pretty straightforward. Ton of PGA content. Don't ask him about his lineups this week. He doesn't want to hear about it. But the guy does a killer job, man. He crushes it. You do a ton of shows with Noto and Cards, podcasts with Kenny. What's your content schedule like from week to week, Tambo? You got your hands full.
Well, Monday to Sunday, man, we're wide open. The golf is Monday to Wednesday, and then Thursday through Sunday is going to be all football. So you guys can check it out. If you go on my Twitter at Totag and Tambo, you can see the content schedule. I've pinned it there, and lots of free shows throughout to keep checking us out. But this one here, man, is all about Thursday night. $1 million on the line over at DraftKings. That's what we're ready to get after.
Of course, and I don't think everybody still digested the stat correction from the last Showdown slate. It even made ESPN headlines, which is unheard of. I never want to feel that pain. I take many L's, and some are better and worse than others, but I don't want to feel that pain, man. Just put me out of my misery. Take me out to the proverbial woodshed and I'm okay. But man, if that's why Showdown is so crazy, fraction of points we're talking here, and we have a game here between Atlanta and Carolina where we have a lot of household DFS names, a lot of guys who are in a lot of stacks every week, a lot of guys who are involved in pass happy teams because maybe they're trailing. And something's got to give when they play each other, right? So you can't cram all of them. There's not a ton of value. So, where do you begin? This game could go in one of many directions, as you said, Tambo.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is, people looking at, they just play. So it's, teams that see each other other times. It's in a division. It's really early in the season for them to be playing the second end of that. So I think one thing is for certain, the ownership's going to switch around here with the late news. And I know everyone's worried about the weather and what does that mean for the passing game and different thoughts around that. But first off, right out of the gate, with weather aside, before I even thought about anything for this game, my first thought was, what about the fact that they have seen each other just recently? What about sometimes when people are expecting these big shootouts like this, you can actually end up seeing an under, right? They've got a little bit more looks against the guys they're going up against. You don't know what they're going to do on either side. And then the other second aspect of it is just the matchups, right? No one really ever likes playing a guy like Gurley, but the matchup's incredible against Carolina, that run defense. The other side, everyone wants to play Mike Davis because it's sort of the common thing today going around is the obvious, with CMC not actually ending up in the pool and getting back to things. It's maybe the last week for Mike Davis, the bell cow, and they should just pound him every down and go with it that way. But isn't that what Atlanta's expecting? Not saying they can control it or be better on it, but I could see an under game here, and I could also see a spot where they do contain Mike Davis a little bit, and it ends up being, and as far as the weather goes, the wind and all this stuff people are talking about, all of these guys can catch you short. Think about Carolina for a second. DJ Moore, short A-dot. Curtis Samuel, who's almost been filling in for CMC, can rush a few touchdowns in if he wanted to, or catch these shorter passes. Robbie Anderson, talked about this last week. Obviously, he's known as the big play threat ever since the New York Jets days, but at the same time, he's been used a lot differently this year. I compared him to John Brown last year when everyone expected him to be, for Josh Allen and the Bills, just this deep threat. He was catching passes 10 yards and then taking them to the house. So Robbie Anderson, for me, is still in play, definitely. And then you go to the Atlanta side, and it's the exact same thing. Ridley, Jones, Gage, can they catch some bombs? Sure. Do they have to? No. So I think there's a lot of angles. It's not to say play everybody. It's to say I wouldn't focus too much on some of these other things, right? I want to focus more on ways that we can get different within this game when Mike Davis is all the chalk.
Yeah, and I just saw 5 minutes ago, Ito Smith is inactive tonight. A little bit surprised there. He only saw 3 snaps last week, but usually they dress him. But looks like you can get him out of your player pool completely for tonight's game. It seems like just yesterday that guy was fantasy relevant, when Devontae Freeman was out. But he made a lot of points, a lot of good points in what you just said. Another guy who's trending in the right direction is Hayden Hurst. I think, earlier in the season, he wasn't being utilized. Last 3 weeks, his snap counts have been up. He was on the week 1, 78% of the snaps. Okay, played a good amount. Then the next 3 weeks, he was in the 60s. Last 3 weeks, most recent 3 weeks, 83%, 85%, 73% of snaps. So take that for what it's worth. I also think some interesting notes in terms of snaps last week. I know we can't read too much into one game, but it looks like Russell Gage was yielding some snaps to Brandon Powell. Did he miss any time during last week's game, Tambo, that you know of?
Yeah, I think there's a slight injury there, and there's a bit of concern, but it's going to be all good for this game. It was something with the knee, but they said no, he's back. Everything's going to be all good. No injury designation going into this one, so I don't mind Gage as a play that you can put into your lineups. I know too, if you guys are premium members here on RotoGrinders, if you're not, you need to sign up. Producer Devin maybe drop a link in there for you throughout the show. But, Eric Bimeford does an article on here. You see him up there at the top with the red circle around his name, the conviction plays. His article with Slate IQ was saying, looking at this game, some of the leverage positions, 3 3s, 4 2s, you don't often see 3 3s though. He mentioned that, and I agree. You see a lot of these get taken down by 4 2s, 5 1s, all these different, team versus team stacks, whether it's 5 and 1 or 4 and 2 is more common. 3 and 3 was a little bit more common today. And I think that, that makes a lot of sense, and you can fit a lot of different constructions with that. The pricing's set just right, and there isn't too many, off the wall plays that I'm excited about. So I really like that setup as far as this game's concerned. I think Gage fits into either a 4-2 as the 2 on the one side, or in the 3-3, he fits in just as well. I probably wouldn't use him at captain though. That's just me.
No, good point there. And he's a very affordable price here. And there's kind of on DK, there's like a no man's land in the pricing kind of, zone here. As you can see, you have, I'm under captains here, but if I go to flex, just so we can see what the, non-captain pricing is, you have, Gurley 8.4. Then you go, hold on. I have it sorted by fantasy points. So, you have Curtis Samuel, Gage, and then what? You're talking kickers in terms of safe plays. Defense will be very contrarian in a game with a 50-plus Vegas total, and I get it. We see projected ownerships here on Lineup HQ. But after that, we're used to having some guys that you can punt where you're thinking, I could see it. He could see 5 or 6 targets. Maybe he scores, but you're really digging the bottom of the barrel. So, kudos to DK for aggressively pricing this slate. Both of these kickers have kind of been rock stars so far this season. They're throwing up points, and we're seeing offenses that are moving the ball but might not be the most efficient, kind of getting in the red zone and not always able to capitalize here. But, I do think we're going to see a lot of Panthers captains. Just looking at matchups alone, everybody knows Atlanta stinks. Whether it's you're attacking Mike Davis and the good old running backs against Atlanta's, or you're picking one of these receivers. And it's a strange game because it might be difficult to pick which receiver you like the most on both teams in this game. So, and for price, I think you're going to see just based on price, Calvin Ridley is tough to stuff in there at captain, Tambo. And we obviously know what his ceiling is, and you can make the same case for Julio Jones. Of course, quarterbacks, usually get in there. People throw quarterbacks in. It's not usually my style, playing GPPs. I want to get as much leverage as possible. So, oftentimes I kind of just eliminate them from my captain pool when I'm playing large field GPPs. But if you throw Ridley in at captain, it's going to be tough to build today.
Yeah, I think so. I guess this would be a spot where, I'm not as excited about a quarterback in the captain. They do spread it around, but and then you just got to pair him up with at least a couple guys. If you're going to put a quarterback captain, I want at least 2 of his receivers or something in the flex spots. But I think it's, like you said, I think it's going to be, if you're not going to use a Gurley or a Mike Davis in the captain, which I can see going around that, no problem. And you want to use a pass catcher like Ridley, Julio, Robbie Anderson. Those are sort of the 3 I'm looking at, guys that can really put up enough points to break a slate. And then if they're in the captain with the 1.5x, then obviously even more so. I don't mind that. And I think, going back to those values you talked about at the bottom, there's not many, but now with Ito Smith out, I already kind of liked Brian Hill a little bit. It's a good matchup. We could obviously see a spot where Gurley ends up doing some of the work, but they tail off a little bit near the end, or there's a bunch of different scenarios that you could build around that could get him in there at 30, sorry, not in the captain, at 2,200 over in the flex spot. And then the other decision to be made here, I butchered this back in, whatever it was, week 2 or last time they played, which is recent. I loved the Ian Thomas. The matchup against Atlanta for tight ends has been incredible. I love going back to it. I've already built some lineups before the show here where I've got him into it, but I noticed in the chat, they're just mentioning, among other cool things like my lookalikes and whatnot, they did mention that, you could go down to Manhurts, and I actually don't hate that. He's $200. And it's just something you can easily see happening here, right? Everyone decides. It's always like if this didn't work out last game, let's go this way. And then when that doesn't work out, you're like, it should have known. You have to like outthink the overthink that you did in the first place. So if everyone's going to go back to the well on a guy like Ian Thomas for the matchup and how he failed the first time, it's almost like you have to go one step further and go Manhurts. So I actually don't mind that for plugging him into the flex. And then it really opens up. You've got tons of money you could spend across the board. But Brian Hill is probably my favorite punt down there. And the Ito Smith news just added to that right now.
You just have to be comfortably uncomfortable knowing you might take a big fat zero in one of your flex spots. And I guess if you have a fairly low owned captain that crushes, you could probably still cash. But you just have to know this GPPs we're talking here, right? So you're throwing a guy in like that, you might leave town tonight with a zero, but that's okay. I know we talked about the running backs earlier. Mike Davis, very popular, great matchup. Last time they played, he had 10 catches. I think that could be maybe a bit of an outlier. I mean, that's 10 full DraftKings points there. And I get it. But now you have Curtis Samuel in the mix too for, more of a role, who I do like tonight. And he's going to see quite a bit of a very slow corner. So if I'm looking for one potential splash touchdown, we know these Carolina receivers can fly, but I'm going to take a stab at some Curtis Samuel shares. But I do think Gurley's in a great matchup, and I do believe he will be the lesser owned of the two running backs, especially at that captain position. And you could build a game script around Todd Gurley captain, and obviously you would probably want to temper your exposures to the stud Falcons receivers and those builds. But Carolina is just not good against the run. They are 4th worst in the league in rushing success percentage, 7th worst overall in rushing yards per game. They're 2nd in the league in rushing touchdown percentage. And I'm looking at these numbers on Gridiron IQ right here on RotoGrinders. Our tools are awesome. Easy information right here. If I can process this information, anybody can. Trust me. And the opponents are really running the ball when they get inside the 10-yard line against the Panthers. So, I think there's a lot of reasons to play Gurley, and we mentioned a lot of names. And I think he'll be kind of lower-ish owned. I know everybody likes the running backs and the high touchdown equity in a showdown slate, but everybody loves Mike Davis, the guy who catches the passes out of the backfield too, right? So I think there might be a little bit of a contrarian look with Todd Gurley. I'm playing 2, maybe 3 higher stakes lines, and I'm definitely going to have at least one Todd Gurley captain.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. I do like that. I mean, I could definitely see, I guess my lean, I'm not sure, we didn't talk about this really. We mentioned the spread, the total. My lean, if I was a betting man, which I am, I would be betting. I'm actually taking Atlanta money line and the under. That's what I'm feeling in this game, right? And I think it's just, it's not really crazy. It's only a 1.5 point spread. I just feel like Atlanta just still is in a tough spot. Everyone's down on them, but it's, Matt Ryan, Julio, Ridley are healthy. Gurley's looked pretty good late. This defense, like you said, hasn't been something to be scared of with Carolina and stopping anything since Luke Kuechly retired in the offseason, which was unexpected. So I'm not really too worried about this game. And then the only reason I think the under is just because, like I said, the fact that they'd seen each other before, all these other reasons. And then if you look at it, Matthew Archer just asked, it kind of sets up well. He said, is going with neither quarterback unique or just stupid GPP one lineup? I actually don't hate that because I think there's a couple of factors. Like if it does just have this slugfest back and forth, it can still involve short passing. It can still involve, catching a bomb, but not getting in, and all these different factors that don't really use the quarterback. So you could have, Gurley in the captain, Ridley in the flex. You can go back to a guy you like Robbie Anderson on the other side. And there's still plays that we just talked about that can fit in. You could fit one kicker if you wanted. You could fit another pass catcher, maybe a tight end from one of the teams for these short passes and just choppy move the ball type of game. So I don't think it's going to go way under. I'm not saying I'm predicting, a 30-point game on a 51.5 point total. I just think I would feel fine with an under ticket here and to be able to just see how this game plays out. So I don't hate using no quarterbacks if you're doing it that way, but I kind of like it more with a running back in the captain spot, and then just letting these short passes do the damage the other ways and hope that that running back like Gurley gets a touchdown and the 100-yard bonus.
I think it's viable. Yeah. And it's different, I was listening to our very own Jordan Cooper and Eric, who did the Showdown article. He hopped on the podcast, The Theory of DFS. Great job. Definitely check out that podcast. And if you're worried, people should be more worried about theories and construction rather than player X or player Y. And they do a great job of breaking it down. And they talked a little bit about Showdown at the end and how correlations kind of matter a little bit less, because it's almost like anything goes in Showdown. And it could be that ugly of a script or a game where you might not need your quarterback. It absolutely is possible. Unlikely, but possible. And, it's kind of more about how many, when you're right in playing GPPs, if you're right 2 out of 10 times, but you're really right, that's where you maximize your ROIs. If you're right 8 times and you min cash those 8 times, good for you, but you're probably long-term, not making money. So I would maybe throw one or two of those teams and maybe something like the Millie and that script. Not many people are going to be on builds like that. So I do find that really intriguing. But yeah, so I don't know. Let's just say, I don't know who. Give me a captain on Atlanta side. If you had a lean, you think Atlanta. Would you say Atlanta in the under? I mean, do you have a?
Yeah,
are you someone here?
It's Gurley. Yeah, it's
Okay.
Gurley, right? I think here's the thing. Couple things on the Atlanta captains. It's Gurley for the reason I talked about. Mark just mentioned in the chat 2017. I definitely think that's realistic. Maybe you want to bump it slightly more, 24-20. I'm just saying it looks more like that to me. Atlanta 24-20 would be something I would call, right? That I think, so Gurley for sure. But realistically, like I said, we're going to be wrong so much in Showdown that I just want to try and work around things. I think the most popular captain, and the ownership does show it a little bit, so you got to just lean that way anyway, is to go with Ridley. But actually, if you look, since the last couple games, Julio's been out targeting him, and I think Julio actually goes a little bit more underlooked. So it probably goes, Ridley, Gurley, Julio for Atlanta captains. And for me, I've got it Gurley, Julio, Ridley. And that's just my thoughts. I don't know if people are just coming around that it's late steam on Gurley, that he's going to get talked up a bit more. So maybe he does show up to be a little bit more popular. But, earlier in the day when I was looking at it, Gurley was still down the list, even actually under Julio. So, it was Ridley, Julio, Gurley. So I don't know. We'll have to see what you think. But that's sort of the way I'm leaning for the Atlanta side as far as captains. One quick note on the Carolina side. Somebody here said, Mike says, Samuel captain I like. I personally don't love it because I just don't think it's going to be enough points. What I do love, though, with Curtis Samuel, and you mentioned liking him, I really do like him a lot in the flex in a bunch of lineups because, and with that said, a bunch of lineups without Mike Davis, because we look for that end around at the goal line or something that he does to steal and leverage the Mike Davis points out of the lineup. But is that going to break the slate if he runs a touchdown in that way and then catches, 3 passes for 40 yards? Probably not so much. So you can use him there. It's just my opinion, but that's how I'm looking to utilize him when I'm doing my roster construction. So just being full disclosure on that play, I do like it, but more so in the flex.
Yeah, obviously it's riskier. The price reflects that. His history reflects that. He really hasn't had a massive play this season, but it could be tonight. I mean, he's going to see a lot of Isaiah Oliver, it is, who plays in the slot. I looked at the numbers earlier. He plays, I think, around 40 to 40, maybe 45% in the slot, something like that. And Curtis Samuel seems to line up there when he's on the field. He runs like a 4.3, 240, something in that range. And Isaiah Oliver's more like a 4.5 guy. And, I weigh wide receiver quarterback matchups a little bit more in Showdown than I do, on the main slate with 16 games. There's more people flying around all over the field. But you really do have to really look into the nitty gritty when you're diving in. So I think it could be, I think he has more of a chance tonight than in most matchups to kind of rip off a big play. All I need is take a quick slant to the house, and there you are, Curtis Samuel captain. So I don't hate that either. Our very own Kevin Roth, Weather at RotoGrinders, does an awesome job. We got to get him on the show one time. Follow him on Twitter at Kevin Roth WX. He did post about an hour ago that it looks like the wind is much lower. Game winds 10 to 15 miles an hour sustained, he said. Gusts could be 20 to 25. He said the rain is spotty and difficult. Could see a downpour. Could see the rain miss. The stadium, the rain could miss. The stadium could stay dry. But it looked like his ultimate conclusion was not to make decisions based on weather unless we know that for sure it's going to be a problem. So check Kevin Roth out over there on Twitter. Does a great job for RotoGrinders. Kevin Roth WX. And what's your take on weather, Tambo, just in general?
Yeah, it is around the wind that I would start to worry a little bit. But like I said, that's game dependent. In this game where I mentioned at the top, don't go to repeat, but I had all these guys that you just talked about Curtis Samuel. Like maybe that's more of an angle for that if you like that route. But for me, like I said, I just use them a different way. But there's so many guys here that can catch passes. And if you go onto the RotoGrinders forums and look at the latest posts for this game for our main forum, a lot of guys that live local, girls that live local are saying nothing to be worried about realistically. So I'm going to trust the people that are right there in the heart of the city, close enough to the game. Again, like I said, I just don't worry enough. And if anything, I hope it brings more people to Mike Davis. And if Mike Davis breaks the slate, so be it. This is the time, regardless of matchup, regardless of whatever you want to say, that I'll be happy to be wrong, because it's if you play this game that many times and he's that high owned and in the captain that much and so on and so forth, I really just want to go against that as hard as I can. Like just looking here in the past couple minutes as we were talking, Clay Walker said Teddy is going to torch the Atlanta defense. In my head right away, I'm like thinking, oh yeah, obviously that could happen. And I like that comment for a reason, because then I go and look at a lineup build on my screen here. You guys can't see it, but I just, I said earlier, maybe no quarterback in the captain, but then I thought again, what about, leave Mike Davis out of the lineup, run Teddy at the captain, use his tight target tree of guys like Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, Samuel, if you want to, and run it out that way, because isn't there an opportunity for Teddy B to rush in 2 touchdowns right here? It's the same exact matchup. He's a very mobile quarterback. So I actually don't hate that. I guess I don't like Matt Ryan as much there just because the rushing upside, but thinking about Teddy, and there was that little clip a couple weeks ago where they said, let Teddy cook was the joke, and, just playing off of the Russ stuff in Seattle. And I remember it was like a pump fake go, and he went like 15, 20 yards, took it right in untouched. So I actually don't mind that if you put Teddy in the captain. I still like pairing him up with a couple receivers, but again, he would fit that 3-3 or that 4-2 mold that we were looking for in our builds, and it makes some sense. And again, I would probably leave Mike Davis out of it. I don't think as many people as you'd think would do that. I think everyone thinks, and I know you can, we've seen it already, Mike Davis can catch a bunch of passes. You could definitely use that. I just think there's only so many ways to get different on this slate based on these two teams. So I'm going to try and just be right for once and hope the other stuff goes wrong. But the idea is that I know that this can go against me. So I'm okay with that. I'd rather take the chances and go with the situations that we talked about here.
I'm kind of having a slight deja vu moment. Our last show last Thursday, I don't know. I don't think I ever did an actual victory lap before, but if I could start the car and just go like halfway around the track, I was talking about Golden Tate and Sterling Shepard were right in this like 18 to 20% range because they haven't performed, right? They didn't do anything all year. They both score in the same game, of course. And I said, go over the field on guys who historically, when healthy, have performed. And, on a 1-game slate like this, everybody's flocking to the bigger names here. 22% on Russell Gage, at this price, 4,200. I mean, especially if they fall into that trailing game script too. If you have a Mike Davis captain team, and they start going, I mean, Russell Gage is a big part of this offense, guys. And Hayden Hurst, they might not correlate well together. So maybe you pick one, depending on the recent snap counts. I don't know. But Hurst has definitely seen the field a lot more. I mean, I guess you could play both of them, but I'm not sure if lineup construction would just work out that way. But these are two guys that if I'm, maxing some stuff out, I would definitely be overweight, opposed to these projected ownerships here, 25 and 22. They're just integral. They're not like a big, I can see it, what if happened kind of guys. I mean, these guys are a part of the offense for sure. So if I see any takeaways just based on ownership is, Hurst and Gage are two guys I would certainly be overweight on tonight.
Yeah, I definitely don't hate that. I guess, someone asked just now about Russell Gage and Curtis Samuel will be low owned in the captain, but typically that's for a reason, right? What are the chance? Like you're kind of looking for the crazy things have happened. Remember Ridley just a few weeks ago in an Island game put up a 0, right? So, you don't expect things like that. When Calvin Ridley puts up a 0 after all these 18 and 24-point games, it'll throw you right off. And then, there's a possibility. But it's just so tough to see in this type of matchup for something like that to happen, that I love those guys both for the flex. I like them in the same lineup in the flex. Will you be naturally unique by putting them in the captain? For sure. It just depends on, your risk versus reward. I think my way to always look at it is like, I'm looking for a way to get unique without getting stupid. You hear the common saying in DFS all the time is quote unquote too cute. It's not really too cute because those are guys that definitely could do something. But I do think in my head, anyway, the way I see the game going is a lot more things need to go right for them, or you could call it go wrong for the other guys for that to really end up happening. So I'm not going to allocate a bunch of my stuff to get around that. I'm going to try and go for, some of the more under-owned guys that can still get off here, like, DJ Moore, I think Todd Gurley, who we already talked about. These are great plays that nobody really wants to use. If people want to use Robbie Anderson over DJ Moore, likely, maybe, Teddy Bridgewater, we talked about it, Gurley over a guy like Ridley and Julio over a guy like Gurley. So I personally like using those guys more and just building my constructions around that. Also, I really do think based on just the numbers and the ownerships, people are building for the over here, right? I think that's the situation.
No, I think you're right. I think you'll definitely be unique. If you're betting the under and you're thinking that way. By the way, Todd Gurley is second in the National Football League in rushing attempts this season. There are not many backfields that are workhorses are gone. Our grandkids in the future won't know what a workhorse is in the NFL. They might not even run the ball in 30 years. So what do I know? They might just run 5 wide every play. But the volume is good. You're looking for guaranteed volume tonight. Todd Gurley is going to get it, unless they're getting smacked, blown out of the water after the first quarter, which it's Atlanta. Anything is certainly possible. But for sure, Todd Gurley and his 122 carries, which are second in the NFL, is definitely going to be there. So, it's all about opportunity. You can't guarantee anybody's production, but in terms of opportunity, barring injury or anything or complete abomination in the first quarter and a half, Todd Gurley is going to get the work or the opportunity to do so. So I just wanted to throw that number out there too. And just going back to Carolina, Robbie and DJ Moore commended so far this season about 70 off the top of my head. I said it on a podcast earlier this week with TJ Lasig. Over 70% of the air yard market share between Moore and Anderson. Now you got, Curtis Samuel kind of being relevant again, but how do you pick between Moore and Anderson at this point? It's just as variant as Showdown slates are. It's tough. I mean, we're talking about probably the best matchup for receivers in the NFL going against Atlanta secondary here, Tambo. It's tough today.
Yeah, like I said, it's tough to pick. I'm actually, just so you know, siding with both in most cases and leaving Davis out. Like the more I go back and look at my lineups, it's just the matter of, they command so much of the target share. It's a tight target tree. You can mix in though. I don't mind going, more Samuel with Teddy and then flipping it on the next lineup to Anderson. If you got the money, the idea is that you're looking to leverage the slate. And the main thing for me is Mike Davis is just going to be so popular. I think though, back to what I was saying earlier about the Ridley versus Julio thing, I do feel like not talking about DJ Moore, more people will take Anderson here, but I do side with DJ Moore. If you look at my ownerships and stuff like that, I'm going to go more on Moore to round it out.
When they signed Anderson, I was like, man, what are they doing with Teddy Bridgewater? But, Matt Rule got his guy, another speedster, and he's having a breakout year. So kudos to the Panthers for getting Robbie Anderson. And they're fun, man. They're fun to watch. Let's maybe build something fun here, right? I know we'll see how this works here, but you're betting man, and you're talking about taking the unders. So this might not be the perfect game to do it, but in Showdown, perfect never wins, right? So what if you put Todd Gurley a captain here, and dare I say you run Atlanta defense with the typical correlation when you want to pair the running back with his defensive. I'm talking about if you're playing the Millie here, can you build that way in DFS land tonight, Tambo?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's a classic pairing. If, Teddy makes some mistakes, that would be a way to be different right out of the gate. And as we talked about it last week, it depends on how you want to go about it. But, you can always have a defense versus a quarterback, especially in Showdown. It just, could happen right out of the gate, boom, and then Teddy comes back and has a pretty decent game. But that could be huge in that price range if the kickers don't get involved or if the tight ends aren't involved, different things like that. So, one thing on Gurley, just while we were there, we got a few minutes here, but Conscious Machine 413 reminded me of this. I forgot we didn't, buried the lead here on the karma going against Todd Gurley for scoring that touchdown last game when he wasn't supposed to. The mistake touchdown. And then the clip came out yesterday where Matt Ryan literally said to him in the huddle, don't score. Oh, yeah, I got it. And then boom, trips and falls into the end zone or whatever that was. It was embarrassing. But Yeah, that could be something. I don't think he's going to hurt himself, like Conscious is saying, but I do think, it's interesting to think about how. But at the end of the day, it's just like you said, that matchup's too strong. The way I think the game's going to go, that's a certain build I could start with, and I don't mind, like you said, throwing the Falcons in there, having them as a defense, and then what do we got to spend here? What's left over?
Well, if you plug in Gurley in Atlanta, you got 8.5 per position. So you're saying, throw Bridgewater in something like this, and kind of hope, maybe Teddy makes a mistake or two. Is that the direction you would go? Falcons?
I mean, if you were looking for, I would do that more in like an over type lineup if I was doing for an over build, because then the idea is that gets there, but some of these punt plays don't get there. So I don't hate that for a style of build. You were talking about the under though. So I would probably start here maybe with a DJ Moore or a Robbie Anderson. And the other thing too is this is a night for sure to leave money on the table. Like the lineups sort of build themselves when you start building. You'll see it. And that's just going to be so duplicated that you're going to try and look for spots like this. So I don't even mind this. And you could even throw, see what it looks like with DJ Moore in there for a second. And what does that leave us?
So if you have DJ Moore, Anderson, you have 8.4 for 2 spots. And we can't put everybody in this thing, so you'll have to use your imagination for the last one. But, where do you go now? You got Robbie, DJ Moore, and Atlanta defense at flex with Gurley at captain.
Yeah, I think then you got to decide what the other, if we're looking, you can go 3-3 here. You can get to the 4-2 if we want to carry it along. What's it look like if you put Matt Ryan in? We're not going to fill the last spot, but people can use their imagination.
Yeah, they got 5,800 left.
Right. So there's sort it by price. There's going to be some options there, right? So
yeah, you got a couple guys there.
Yeah. Samuel, Gage, whatever you want, that's sort of the idea that you could use Young Hoku, you could use the kicker there and just say that it's basically Ryan gets it in or, runs one in, maybe a sneak. Gurley scores a touchdown or two. The D mans up. You got the 2 good pass catchers from the other side and lots of angles on the other way. Or like they were talking about earlier, go without both quarterback or go without Teddy Bridgewater in the lineup with his pass catchers. And you could just put another guy like Samuel and just say it's all game and them catching short passes back and forth. So, that's just an idea of the build. Now take out Anderson, Moore, and Ryan for a second.
Okay.
And let's build for this over and chuck Teddy B in there that, he makes a mistake or two.
You want me to get rid of this defense or keep it?
No, keep it in. We're just going to see what that build looks like, right? When you go through it. So now we're going to say Teddy's going to need to connect with someone.
Right.
You can pick, Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, whoever you like, in the upper tier.
Okay, we'll go DJ Moore. He's a little cheaper. So you got
less on.
Yeah, 7.7 for 2 spots here.
Right now, it's up to you at this point, but I'm saying you could flip it and go back to a pass catcher for Atlanta. Say that that Gurley scores a touchdown or two, but then they need to get a pass catcher involved. So maybe it's Julio.
Yeah. And they got 56, and then dealer's choice for the last spot here.
Right back to it. So there's an example. How many people are going to use? Again, somebody will, but how many people are going to use the defense in the flex against Teddy B and then go with receivers in hand and then go back to Teddy B on the other side? I just don't think it's as many as you would think. And there's definitely a scenario where this lineup can get there, right? That's absolutely something that could happen where you see this lineup pan out. And again, people aren't always thinking that way, but we've seen crazier things. We've seen a running back in the captain with 5 guys from the other team on the other side before. We, last week, not to put salt in the wound on the guy that lost, he was a good sport about it, Robocals or whatever. He was on Twitter talking about it. But he basically, he had the defense against the quarterback with I forget what he had the setup of it, but it was off the wall where people were just saying like, that's a crazy build to even get there, but good for him. And then sure enough, we talked about, the karma, maybe it was the bad, the perceived bad lineup build. I thought it was great. I think it's hard to be unique in these things, and that was a great way to do it. And this is just another prime example where you can do a Todd Gurley lineup that may be getting some late steam. You say, oh, it actually ended up getting more ownership than we thought, but isn't this still pretty unique within a Todd Gurley captain lineup? I think it is, right? So a few minutes left here. Maybe flip to now like a pass catcher lineup or whatever you think with putting somebody into there in the captain of one of these teams as far as the pass catchers go.
Let's see here. Yeah, let's go with DJ Moore, a captain. So throw him in here, 12-3 at captain. I'm going to take Teddy with him. So there's 2 spots. Whoops, can't put 2 captains in. That would make things a lot easier, wouldn't it? Lock Teddy in here at flex. So, you're going to play the over probably in most scenarios here with the pass catcher. So, Calvin or Julio, I mean, we're looking at a little bit more of an expensive build here, but let's say you want to try to play one of them. Who do you side with here?
I'm going to go Julio only because a couple reasons. One, I think it's Ridley and Gurley more popular, as we talked about, or at least the way the late steam is on Gurley. I thought before he might be the least owned, but Ridley I think is definitely more than Julio. So if you go with Julio, you're doing 2 things. One, you're probably using the second or third highest owned on Atlanta. So you're getting a little bit different in that sense. And then also on the other side of it, it's a game where everyone's perceiving it to be a running game and both these matchups. So you're already doubling down on being a little bit different. I don't mind that. And then obviously you want to plug in, for me anyway, I want to plug in Matt Ryan right after that.
And it is possible to get off Julio if you go Gurley in a different script where you think, okay, maybe he scores early. Maybe he doesn't have, maybe the rest of 3 quarters are, a bit, pedestrian. And here comes DJ Moore and Teddy Bridgewater. And so there's plenty of different scripts you go with here, but you can see, you're really hurting if you put Ryan and Teddy together with anybody over like 7K, you're looking at 3,100, 3,150 and change for the last 2 spots. So, you're getting down to the bare bones here. I know you mentioned some guys down here. You said you don't hate Brian Hill. Ian Thomas is everybody. Everybody's trying to get Ian Thomas and his 11 whole targets this year. The guy ran like 140 routes or something. He has 11 targets. One of the world's greatest mysteries, I guess, Ian Thomas. So where do you go now, Tambo? You got like nothing to work with here, but if you had to pick a place to go, where are we going?
Well, I think we got to try out and see what it looks like with, Ian Thomas, or you could use Manhurts as well.
That's
right.
True.
You can go down to him and see what that money opens up. We talked about using him earlier. I don't hate that. And if it leaves enough to do something decent with, then that'd be a way to go, right? You could definitely set that up.
Yeah. Ian Thomas
looks pretty interesting.
37. So, you're looking at the Panthers D.
It'd be the reverse of what we just talked about with the Panthers going against Ryan. If you go down to Manhurts instead of Thomas,
I'm sure we can make something work here. Yeah.
Then it really opens it up. Yeah. And I don't think that's too off the wall. It's, again, a build where you'd be looking at not putting Mike Davis in it. You're playing a little bit of the pass game, but Teddy Bridgewater could steal those touchdowns. Manhurts could steal those touchdowns. You still got Matt Ryan and Julio from the other side of this game. And then there's a couple ways to go, right? You could go, you could go Samuel. You could go, and then that leaves money. You could go Julio to Ridley. You could keep Julio. There's a lot of different ways to use this build. Do you want to flip over to Fanduel just for a second on here? Just get a quick glance at it. We got a few minutes left. Some folks out there looking to see what our thoughts are and how they translate to Fanduel. I think that's a good idea. Spend maybe last 5-6 minutes on that.
For sure. We can take a question or two at the end before we wrap up. Let's see here. So we're on Fanduel. Let me get over to Showdown.
Maxwell Glover right away. This Manhurts talk, y'all got to stop. Yeah, I probably don't disagree, but we're looking to get a little bit different. If you were on earlier in the show, what we had talked about is I think people will go a little bit to Mr. Ian Thomas here after he failed the first game and how good this tight end matchup's been. And so while we were talking about with Manhurts is to sort of outthink that process of if it's, of course, you can see it. You guys have all seen this. You've been playing DFS for long enough if you're on this show that you're going to go, of course, Manhurts scores the touchdown when it's the bounce back spot, perfect for Ian Thomas.
How did this guy play Manhurts? I can't believe he played Manhurts.
Exactly,
Come on, no way he played him. He got lucky.
I don't think it's that crazy. It's not ideal, but on a slate like this, I think it's fine to go ahead with something like that and leave some money on the table. So keep throwing your questions in there, guys. We'll answer them. Let's look at some Fanduel in the meantime.
Fanduel. Yeah, here's the pricing for the MVP slots. Obviously, it doesn't change. Big difference between DK and Fanduel to anybody new. When you plug someone in MVP, the price stays the same, which kind of makes things easier but harder to be different. Obviously, Fanduel is a little more touchdown dependent here, and you tend to see quarterbacks more at the MVP slot a little more than you do on DK, just from a raw points perspective. So here we are, Fanduel. Tambo, I mean, what are you thinking here? Looking at the salaries here, Teddy Bridgewater, 4th highest guy. That's the first thing that catches my attention here. Is he's the quarterback and he's the 4th highest priced player in a good matchup. If I'm playing something high floor, I'll probably start there at MVP.
Yeah, I would still. It's up to you. I like using the quarterbacks or the running backs on FanDuel. It's
Mhm.
you can try and get different with a tight end. I'm just looking for more touchdown equity and multiple and things like that. So I would probably still start if you want to pull up the lineup preview with something like just start with our Gurley build and see how that looks. I'm just curious right now to see what that shakes down like.
Gurley.
Mike Yoakum says Manhurts is chalk. I. Hmm,
Don't think he will be.
I don't know. It's I guess because for all the if you're using the $200 guy for sure, but I think a lot more people are uncomfortable with that build and putting a $200 guy in that they don't really trust. Our ownership right now, what does it show? 7%. That's
Yeah.
not chalk. Yeah, I mean if it gets up more than that, sure, but that's so many lineups that don't have him. 93 out of every 100 lineups don't have him. It literally might take one touchdown for that to pay off, and you've just leveraged 93% of the field. What if he does more? So it's just that's my point. It's not ideal. Okay, he's kidding. He says, "I'm good then." Okay, because I was like, no, I don't think so. I like that. And what was Ian Thomas just going back 20%?
Yeah.
So definitely don't like that. No, we love the back and forth, Mike. It's all good, man. I like that type of stuff. I was just I had to go check. Honestly, I didn't look earlier, and it makes sense when you're the only $200 play on the field. It's great discussion. Love to see it.
Tambo's very
diplomatic.
Very diplomatic here. Tambo is like chalk 7%. What? All right. So
I gotta go see this right now.
all
Yeah,
right,
let's
all
keep
right.
going here.
So
FanDuel,
Gurley
let's go.
MVP. Who else do we have in that build? Let me think here. It was. Did we throw DJ Moore?
Try and jam the touchdowns in. Yeah, let's try and jam
Yeah.
the touchdowns in. So if we think Ridley's scoring,
Yeah.
let's get the quarterbacks. How bad is it? Let's go Matt Ryan and Teddy B.
Let's see how bad it is. 6K left. And we are officially.
Oh man, we're 1,000 away from Brian Hill for the ultimate. Take Teddy B out.
But I mean, we're in Ian Thomas territory, by the way. Ian Thomas floating down here, 9% projected.
We just said it's on Manhurts. So no, here's a better idea. Take out Teddy B for a second.
Okay.
Go back up.
Yep.
Put in DJ Moore. What's that leave us?
Yeah. 85. And you can do what you please with this last slot here, but you can see the availability here on the screen.
I think it's your Curtis Samuel play. We're not going to round it out, but I do like that. The story is obviously Gurley does damage. Matt Ryan and Ridley have a bit of a game that he'll splash plays, maybe connect on one touchdown. Maybe Gurley catches one from Ryan, and then the other way coming back. It looks a lot more like an over lineup versus the other, and that only leaves a little bit of money. But you could also go down and tell a little bit of a different story. You could throw Brian Hill in that lineup, leave a bunch of money on the table, and just say that, look, Moore's the only guy that catches a touchdown or does anything big from the Carolina side. Gurley, Ridley, Brian do work, and then Brian Hill comes in. If you do see some of the, earlier someone was talking about a 31-17 Falcons victory, I could see something like that and think that'd be interesting. But on FanDuel, you just got to leave money on the table. If you hit the nuts with the maxed out salary or 500 to 1,000 on the table, you're still chopping up such massive amounts that it's, to me, not worth it. I like to be extremely different over there. And it should scare you or be a little bit ugly to you when you're building on FanDuel, because that's the only way. It's not to make the worst lineup just because, but it's realistically to look for a way to get unique without getting stupid, right? That's what you're trying to do. So any other final thoughts?
$3,000 difference between Gurley and Mike Davis is too much on FanDuel, in my opinion, especially when, touchdown equity, the scoring is integral on FanDuel compared to DK. That's a huge gap. And obviously they're flipped on DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson in terms of price here. 11K DJ Moore is, 10K is for Anderson. Interesting. I just personally built solely for DK today, so I didn't spend a ton of time on it. This is the first time I'm looking at it. Those are just my takeaways here. Obviously Teddy, I have no shame in throwing him in at MVP either. He's the fourth highest price guy in a great matchup. So that's where I'm at here, Tambo.
Certainly like that as well too. I definitely like Teddy more as a MVP on FanDuel because we're always using quarterbacks in there anyway. But like we talked about earlier, he can rush. Realistically, I'm going to get buried when Mike Davis goes for 20 DK or whatever you want to call it, goes for 20 fantasy points plus either site. But I just think it's the way to go on a slate where he's this popular that I'm going to risk it because it's a single island game. Anything could happen, right? I'm not going to hope for an injury. Definitely not. I'm just saying that the idea of when someone's that high owned on a slate like this, and there is weapons that can be used around him and on the other way. And I think Atlanta could win this game, which could defeat some of his ability. I know he can catch passes. I get it. I'm just saying you have to look for these angles on slates like this, and that's the way I'm going with it. So hope everyone had a good time, enjoyed themselves, loved the discussion like producer Devin threw out there. Absolutely. Hope you guys catch us every Thursday. We're doing the show every week. We're both doing other shows throughout the week, as you alluded to earlier, Luch. It's a lot of fun. So check us out, guys. If you have any other questions, let me know. But other than that, man, I'm good. You can get us out of here, Justin.
All right. Check him out on Twitter at ToeTag and Tambo. Great PGA stuff, great NFL stuff. Awesome team here at RotoGrinders. So I want to give a shout out to everybody here. We got our hands full with NFL season. Everybody has podcasts, videos, live shows. How about the Sunday morning, pre-lock live show that Dean and company are on? I mean, you can't beat it, right? They're hanging out with you for a couple hours. Really, just get on over here to RotoGrinders. Check out our premium packages. A lot of bang for your buck. It's well worth it. As more people across the industry are talking theory and lineup construction, we're definitely, getting more and more on that train too. And I do a weekly podcast with TJ Lasik, one of the biggest, high stakes players in the industry. And we talk a little bit more theory every week because, football is more on main slates and not Showdown. Correlations matter. And in NFL DFS, correlations are bigger than any other sport, in my opinion. And, you might get your stack right, but did you run a secondary correlation kind of thing? And did that hit? And it's crazy. You got to love it. So good luck on Showdown today, everyone. Hit me up on Twitter at the J Carlucci. Feel free to DM me any questions. Give us some feedback, like and subscribe. And thanks again to our producer, Devin. We're out of here. Good luck, everyone.